What an absolutely crazy weekend in wrestling. Awesome, but crazy. What's going on, everyone? My name is Brandon Vaughn. This is the Superkick podcast. Today is Monday, September 5th, and we are coming off of a huge weekend in wrestling, and I think we're about to go into maybe not an even bigger week, but definitely a huge week, because we are going to see the fallout. Join me today as I recap what happened this weekend, and thank you so much. Let's continue on, baby. What a weekend. Oh my god, for both companies, really. From WWE having, I would say, 2 knockout shows with Clash of the Castle and Worlds Collide, with reports of Braun Strowman coming back, with the reports that, rumors that maybe Bray Wyatt, I don't think there's anything crazy about that. Naomi and Sasha Banks are on the prowl to come back. We've had title changes. We had Roman Reigns, though, retain the Universal title. How many people thought that title was going to change hands? I'll be the first to admit that. I'll get to that in a bit later. I'm going to recap all of this stuff. Crazy weekend for WWE. And then on AEW, you have my favorite wrestler of all time, CM Punk. And I'm wearing the BITW AC/DC shirt that they released almost 10 years ago, because I'm getting up there now, man, but I'm wearing that. I obviously support my boy. I mean, he's the best wrestler in the world. So he won the title, and again, more on that later, and he caused quite a stir, and it's Monday right now, and I'm not even kidding. If you Google wrestling news right now, everything that comes up is about either CM Punk or MJF, and it's mostly about CM Punk, because he went off on the EVPs and Adam Page and Colt Cabana and all of the wrestling journos after. But again, like I said with Clash of the Castle, I will get to that in a bit. Insane weekend. Clash of the Castle started off with, let's just go pre-show. Madcap Moss and the Street Profits defeated Austin Theory and Alpha Academy, and sometimes when the Money in the Bank holder loses their match, it may mean that they're cashing in later. And he would come out later in the show, but would not get a chance to cash it in. But sometimes that means that. I'm pretty sure, didn't Seth Rollins lose to Randy Orton at WrestleMania 31 and then cashed in later in the night? I feel like that happens more often than not, because they're trying to throw people off the set. I just noticing my mustache there. And then we had Damage Control, Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky defeating Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. And I posted my prediction video on YouTube, which I highly recommend you check out, because I got a bunch of stuff right, and I got some other stuff wrong, but I don't like to focus on that, at least. And I said that Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky, they have to win this match. And if you're watching the video, you get to see me drink this sludge, because the podcast is all about grinding for something, and this sludge is all about grinding for something. But they had to win the match. You can't start them off with a loss, especially when they lost the match for the vacant women's tag team titles. I figure they wouldn't give them 2 losses in earlier. There's no way. I mean, that's a group that they're going to push. We had Gunther beating Sheamus, another match outcome that I predicted correctly, and I also predicted that Fabian Aichner, aka Giovanni Vinci, would come back as part of the group. I thought that he was going to maybe rescue, but Gunther doesn't need rescuing. Instead, Ludwig Kaiser introduced him, and he said, pretty much, I didn't say pretty much he's back, but he introduced him, and he's part of Imperium, and Imperium is reformed, which is pretty sweet, and I think that I don't think it was the hardest thing to predict, especially with Triple H being back. You're seeing a lot of guys get their names back. I kept calling Austin Theory and Matt Riddle just Austin Theory and Matt Riddle instead of Riddle and Theory, because I think it sounds a million times better, and Triple H gave them their names back, which is pretty cool. Next we had Liv Morgan beating Shayna Baszler. I'm not going to lie, I did think Shayna Baszler was going to win. Am I the only one that's disappointed by Liv Morgan's title reign right now? I feel like it hasn't been the greatest. I also would, I don't know, man, stop mixing her up with the MMA people so much, with the MMA wrestlers so much. I'm not a fan. Liv Morgan looks like I just saw a picture of her the other day. She was a Hooters waitress. Liv Morgan looks like a girl you'd want to bring home to your parents. I'm sorry, Ronda Rousey, but I guess that's an alright contrast. I don't know, I'd just rather her not be involved in that. I think there's better ways to build her up. But she retains her title, and I'm assuming that Ronda Rousey will get her rematch soon enough. And, this was and I also talked about this next one in my prediction video, and I thought that maybe they were just going to tease it a little bit, but they went full-blown with it, and Edge and Rey Mysterio defeated the Judgment Day, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest, and they may have a new member now. Dominic Mysterio. Edge and Rey Mysterio beat them, and then after the match, you know, the seeds were planted because Dominic was kind of like, well, why aren't you doing this with me? Like, I'm your son, you're doing this with Edge? There was some jealousy planted there leading up to it. And then they did the final, or well, not final, well, I guess finally. I mean, people have been wanting Dom to turn heel for a while. He's been a pretty stale character for a bit now. So he does the full-blown heel turn, maybe joining Judgment Day. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But it also would not surprise me if they were just using him as a pawn in this to... although he didn't really... It's going to be interesting to see the fallout from this. The Judgment Day also kind of sucks. I'm not a fan of the stable at all. I think Edge being removed from the group was such a bad mistake. And then putting Balor as the leader. I also think Balor just... I don't know, man. I just don't like the way that he looks right now. Just like attire-wise, not a big fan of how that looks. Again, going to be so interesting to see the fallout. And it'll be interesting to see how far this group goes without Vince being there. It'll be interesting to see if Triple H likes this. I mean, obviously this was a Vince idea for the Judgment Day. Well, Vince and Edge, I guess. I don't know. Next match was Seth frickin' Rollins defeating Matt Riddle, and this feud had gotten personal on screen with mimicking the Daniel Cormier and John Jones interaction off of. It was supposed to be off air, but it ended up being recorded, and it's like, oh, you don't like get into it. They did that on Raw, and Seth Rollins defeated Matt Riddle by pinfall. That's another match that I predicted. I think Seth's been taking too many losses. I'm pretty sure I predicted Seth to win. I thought that Seth's been taking too many losses, and I'm just looking right now. Dude, I'm not even kidding. Because I was working during this, I swore that Matt Riddle beat Seth Rollins, and I'm just looking at the Seth freaking Rollins defeats Matt Riddle. I was right about that because you're beating Seth Rollins so much. You had him beat, you had Cody Rhodes beat him, come out the best in that feud, and now you're probably going to do the same with Riddle, but you have to have Seth Rollins win the first one, and then maybe Riddle wins the next one. But yeah, Seth Rollins wins. I mean, shout out to Seth Rollins. He is one of the only credible threats in the company to face Roman Reigns. And speaking of Roman Reigns, he shockingly retained the Universal Undisputed WWE title against Drew McIntyre. A lot of people were reporting, and a lot of people were speculating that Drew McIntyre was going to leave Wales as the WWE Champion. That was not the case, though. Roman Reigns retains thanks to help from Solo Sikoa, who made his main roster debut, helping out his cousin Roman Reigns. What a moment for Solo Sikoa to come out in that big of a crowd and make his debut. I think that's pretty sweet. But I was disappointed by that, like a lot of people, because I thought they had an opportunity for a really big moment with Drew McIntyre in front of an extremely pro-Drew crowd, and they didn't do it. And again, I just think, what's next for Roman Reigns? Who will beat Roman Reigns? Here, The Rock, I guess, has to, right? Is that what they're going to do at this point? They just have to, I think. Theory came out, he tried cashing in, and then Tyson Fury hit him in the face, and that was pretty funny to see, actually. I like seeing that. Austin Theory just getting a big right to the face from one of the... I said he's the best boxer in the world. I mean, he probably is right now, honestly. He's definitely the most dominant heavyweight out there. And then he kind of, him and Roman Reigns shook hands a little bit. I would like to see an alliance with Roman Reigns and Tyson. Maybe do Roman Reigns and Tyson Fury against Drew McIntyre and... I mean, this would be crazy. I don't think this would happen. But Drew McIntyre and The Rock against Tyson Fury and Roman Reigns, or maybe Tyson... there's a few different ways they can go with that. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, ultimately, it may lead to nothing. But I think that Tyson Fury has a future in WWE. I mean, I'm a big Tyson Fury guy. He brings credibility to WWE, and I think that anybody that can bring credibility to professional wrestling is a huge plus, especially in 2022 when everybody knows that it's scripted. Ronda Rousey is a wrestler that brings credibility to the business. Brock Lesnar is a wrestler that brings credibility to the business. Guys like, I hate to say it because everybody loves them, but like guys like Adam Cole and the Young Bucks and just guys like that, they don't, like even Seth Rollins, like as much as I like Seth Rollins, or as much as people like Seth Rollins, because I'm not the biggest Seth Rollins fan, he doesn't bring the credibility that a Brock Lesnar would bring, or like a Tyson Fury would bring. I think Matt Riddle brings some credibility to the table too, and it kind of annoys me that they don't focus on that enough. He's just kind of like the stoner guy, like, yeah, like, hey Randy, like, dude, like, this guy was an MMA fighter. And the only reason why he isn't in the UFC anymore wasn't because of talent. It's because he couldn't stay off of the green stuff. He couldn't stop smoking the green stuff. But in WWE, he can, just with a fine. But yeah, Matt Riddle definitely brings credibility. But that was it. Clash at the Castle. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tweet at me at Superkick Show. I'm very curious to see what is going to happen with Roman Reigns going forward. Sikoa will obviously be part of the group. I mean, what happens to Sami Zayn? My dog. I love Sami Zayn, man. He's so funny. And what happens to him? I mean, does Solo Sikoa come in and make quick work of him? And maybe you see a bit of a fraction. I mean, Roman Reigns likes him, but and then Reigns. Rumor is that he's going to face The Rock at WrestleMania. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen, unless maybe something comes together for Fast and the Furious 11 and we see the reunion of Dom Toretto and Hobbs. I don't think that'll happen, though. So I think that it's probably going to be Reigns and The Rock at WrestleMania. How do you get there? Will the Rock beat him? Who is going to beat Roman Reigns? I mean, that is such a... Will it be Tyson Fury? Who knows, right? But from that, we move on to NXT Worlds Collide. NXT UK is ending. NXT Europe will begin. But before that, they had to unify all of the titles. And this wasn't a title unification match, but it was a title match. Carmelo Hayes defeated Ricochet to retain the NXT North American title. Ricochet is a former NXT North American champion, and I think a win for Carmelo Hayes will do a lot for him. I think that he is a guy who is not only a future player in NXT, but also a big-time future player on the main roster. I think he's a very talented guy. I think he can do it on the mic. I think he has a good luck, too. So, shout out to Carmelo Hayes defending the North American title. Then we move on to Pretty Deadly defeating the Creed Brothers, Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs, and Gallus. And a big heel turn happened with Damon Kemp turning on the Creed Brothers. Damon Kemp, of course, is the brother of Gable Steveson, highly touted prospect. I was talking about this, how Dave Meltzer, reported that Gable Steveson isn't coming along as expected, but his brother Bobby Steveson is, and his brother is Damon Kemp. Damon Kemp, Bobby Steveson, same guy. He turned heel. I wonder what will happen for him. He's a guy that probably has a big future too, especially if his brother can come to the roster. They want to be tag team champions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and especially... maybe, is it possible that Gable Steveson could make his NXT debut, the team with Damon Kemp to take on the Creed Brothers? Who knows? I mean, he was originally set for Raw, but maybe they backtracked that a little bit if Meltzer's correct and he isn't coming along as they expected. Interesting stuff, though. Then we have Mandy Rose defeating... I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this name. Maiko Satomura and Blair Davenport. That was a triple threat match. And Mandy Rose is still your women's champion. She unified the titles, and Mandy Rose continues her dominant reign as champion. And what a dominant reign that is. Mandy Rose is, she's hot. She's talented. She's coming along a little bit better in the ring. Maybe she can be like Trish Stratus. Yeah, that's right. I said Trish Stratus. Mandy Rose, Trish Stratus, future match. Book that. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter defeated Doudrop and Nikki ASH. Looks like that is for the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. And Katana Chance and Kaden Carter beat the veterans of Doudrop and Nikki ASH. And I think a lot of people were disappointed. I saw a lot of people were disappointed that Nikki ASH is still Nikki ASH. And she's not just Nikki Cross, man. Just drop the superhero stuff. Just put her as Nikki Cross. That would have been so much better. But maybe they're saving it for a bigger moment, and they knew she was going to lose. So they wanted to have the return of Nikki Cross be at a different time. Main event time was Braun Breaker defeating Tyler Bate and I'm so sorry, I said he was facing JD McDonough in the video that I recorded when I was talking about the how awesome this weekend is. But it was actually Tyler Bate that he defeated. A lot of people thought that Braun Breaker was going to lose the titles and then get called up to the main roster. That's not the case, though. I say that a lot, that's not the case, but I'm just picking up on that. But yeah, Braun Breaker retains/wins. he's going to continue his dominant reign down in NXT, and that'll be interesting to see what it is like moving forward for him. Braun Breaker is another guy that's so talented. Like, and a lot of people thought that maybe he'd be up on the main roster doing big things right now. But you just let him marinate a little bit. I mean, he's still young. I think the correct decision was to have him, have him, give him a win, and then when they do bring him up onto the main roster, maybe have him vacate the title. Wouldn't be the worst idea, but he is the final NXT UK champion, and that is just another accomplishment for him to add to his belt. Another notch in the belt for him. And then we move on to I thought this was the best event of the weekend, and people are going to debate me all day long for this, but I thought the show was awesome. One thing that I will say is, and I tweeted this, I think that WWE has too many bathroom breaks, and I think that AEW has not enough. I think that WWE has too many useless video packages promoting some stuff that doesn't matter, and wrestlers that's like, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, hey, look at all this stuff that it's just very unnecessary. AEW, though, crams everything in, though, man. You don't get a chance to breathe. I was watching the show last night, and I'm like, dude, I don't have a chance to, like, go to the washroom or anything right now. This is brutal. Like, I was missing, when I did have to go to the bathroom, or, like, film something, like, real quick, I was missing significant portions of what was happening, and significant portions of matches. Show started off with the casino ladder match, and a lot of speculation as to who the Joker would be. I saw some people thinking, hey, maybe Jeff Hardy. I thought it would be MJF, and some people thought that would be a waste of him. Turns out, I was right, it was MJF, but we didn't realize that at the time. Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Penta, El Zero, Miedo, Rey Fenix, Arush, Andrade El Idolo, and Dante Martin. I just have one complaint real quick, just looking through these competitors. Can Rush and Andrade just switch up a little bit? Like, maybe, I don't know, man, just change colors a little bit.Maybe one goes like one goes black, the other goes white. I don't know. The presentations are very similar. I am just not a big fan of that. I was a little bit confused at times watching the match, because they both have long hair too, and they're both Latino. It's just, I would just appreciate if the presentation was a little bit better for them. But, yeah, MJF. So what happened was, what happened? I'm trying to remember. Did the lights go out? I think the lights went out. And then Stokely Hathaway, there was a bunch of masked men that came in the ring. One really big tall one, Big Cass. There was, so Stokely Hathaway's groove comes out, and Stokely Hathaway grabs the chip, and I'm like, dude, like I said in the video, Big Stoke, man, he's winning they're becoming a single. I've said it for years, man. Stokely Hathaway is this business's fastest growing and top rising wrestler. I mean, that's him. But a guy that a lot of people are saying that about actually did come out, and that was a guy in a black mask. Had a devil mask on, and actually the song that was playing was Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones. And his build kind of looked like a guy that we all know and love by the name of Adam Cole, baby. Speaking of Adam Cole, the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks defeated Hangman Adam Page in the Dark Order to become the inaugural World Trios Champions. And, they had to get the win. Kenny Omega is one of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the best. He's taken almost a year off. I don't think you can beat him. I think Adam Page has gotten beaten too much, although maybe that's appropriate given what CM Punk said about him. I'm kidding, though. I think Adam Page has taken a little bit too many else. I know he's in the finals. It was a really good match. I will say it was an awesome match. Like, I totally thought John Silver was pinning Kenny Omega twice, which I thought it was incredible near falls, because I think John Silver is one of the most least credible wrestlers on the roster, right there with Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy made his return to the company as well, and during the pre-show, staring down Pac, who retained his All-Atlantic Championship against Kip Sabian. Little recap of that, too. Not a bad match there. Then Jade Cargill defeated Athena. Some people thought that Athena was going to win. I thought that Jade Cargill was the obvious choice. She's like the female 2022, 2020 version of Goldberg. And there's no way you're going to beat her. That's another similar case to, like, Braun Breaker, where I think if they're going to drop the titles, just have them vacate it, or unify it, just like they did with Ultimate Warrior and Goldberg, as I mentioned. I think you really want to mimic what you did with Goldberg, what WCW did with Goldberg, and just slap a new coat of paint on it and call her Jade Cargill. Because she will be the future Women's World Champion one day. You better believe that. But yeah, she defeats Athena. I'm not gonna lie. So when I was talking about going to the washroom, this was kind of, I missed some stuff. I was filming some stuff about the trios match, and I missed a decent portion of it. And if it makes you feel any better, I don't really remember what happened in Wardlow and FTR. Wardlow gave a bunch of power bombs to Jay Lethal at the end. Was that Jay Lethal? Did Jay Lethal get powerbombed at Tanya? Must have. But yeah, Wardlow gave a bunch of power bombs at the end. And, one thing that was really cool, this is a really heartwarming moment. Sorry, I was watching it last night, the drinks were flowing. Memory is not the best. I'm going to have to start taking diligent notes when I watch these shows. This is what I'm learning right now. I'm just recapping these, and I'm fuzzy on some of the details. But it was a really cool moment because Dax Harwood's daughter came out and pinned Sanjay Dutt. I thought that was a really sweet moment, and I think that everybody can agree that what just a wholesome, awesome moment for Dax's daughter, right? And for Dax as a father. Powerhouse Hobbs defeated Ricky Starks in a pretty quick match. Shout out to Powerhouse Hobbs. I think that he is another future star of the company. And I'm not so high on Ricky Starks. I don't really get the appeal of Ricky Starks. I hate to say it, man. There's speculation that maybe he's injured. Speculation that maybe he was one of the ones that asked for his release. After all, he is friends with Cody Rhodes, who returned to WWE, so it would make sense that I wanted to call him Kip Sabian right there, but it would make sense that Ricky Starks would want to follow Cody Rhodes back to WWE if there's interest there. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like him. I'm not a fan, but a lot of people call him like the mini version of The Rock. But I think that is already Rob Schneider. So I don't know, man. I'm just not the biggest Ricky Starks guy. On the converse, though, I really do like Powerhouse Hobbs, and I'm happy he picked up a win, and I hope that the momentum continues. And the next match I thought was tremendous. Swerve in Our Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland defeated the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. And a lot of people thought that they should have called an audible, and they should have just had the Acclaimed win the belt. They were so over in front of this crowd. It was crazy, man. It was also just a tremendous match. I think these four wrestlers should be very proud of themselves. I thought it was a tremendous match. It honestly, I'm just looking at this right now, might be my favorite match on the card. I thought there was just so much awesome stuff in it. And I was really hoping the Acclaimed to win, but, Swerve in Our Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, they retain, and, man, it would have just been, we couldn't have just called the audible there, and then maybe have them lose the titles right back to them. Would that have been so crazy? But maybe their title win will mean more than that. And speaking of title wins, Toni Storm defeated Dr. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Hikaru Shida to become the interim Women's World Champion. Is there some heat there between, Toni Storm and Thunder Rosa after at the press conference after, which everybody will be talking about for, months to come, maybe? Days, weeks, months to come. Is that, she seemed a little bit iffy on whether Thunder Rosa's injury was legit or not. But nonetheless, she defeats these three women and is your new interim Women's World Champion. I think it makes sense. Toni Storm was one of the only positive people in that press conference, so getting her the W is alright. I don't think Britt Baker needed that. I don't think Jamie Hayter is ready for that, and Shida, I also just don't think needs it. I just don't think she's I might catch some heat for this. I don't think she's a real player. But hey, that's my opinion. Next match on the card was Christian Cage defeating Jungle Boy Jack Perry. I feel Tony Khan's listening to the fans a little bit more. I will give him that. I mean, he's listening to the fans a little bit. I've said for a while now that they shouldn't be calling him Jungle Boy. I think that's really dumb. I think Jungle Boy sounds like he's 7 years old and he's swinging through the trees. And I get Nature Boy, but Ric Flair didn't go. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I heard Nature Boy, I thought it was stupid. I really did. Just like I think Jungle Boy is kind of, but Jungle Boy Jack Perry gets the loss. Luchasaurus, who tweeted this, wouldn't be the worst idea if maybe he's just schizophrenic, and he's just like turning, and it would explain a lot of things. The fact that he's a dinosaur, that the schizophrenic thing might not be the worst angle. I know WWE's trying to work that a little bit with Dexter Lumis, but it would explain a lot. But Christian Cage gets the win. There are reports that Christian is injured. What kind of injury it is, nobody really knows. It's all speculation at this point. His arm was wrapped up, but nobody knows right now. Could be that, or it could have just been something to distract as to why he didn't want to have a quick match. Or didn't want to have a long match, rather. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be honest here, I'm not that interested in the storyline. The Luchasaurus turning back and forth. I think it would be great though if he turned babyface on Wednesday and just start protects Jack Perry. I think that would be an alright. If they continue, if that is what they're doing, then I'll give them props for that. If not, then I think it's really random and lazy booking. Chris Jericho defeated Bryan Danielson, and Jericho surprisingly got the win here. A lot of people thought that, including myself, thought that Bryan was going to win. I think that Bryan could have used the win, and I thought that, yeah, I really did think that Bryan was going to beat him, and then it was going to lead to tension between Garcia and Jericho. I mean, there is already tension because when Jericho won, Garcia didn't come out, and Jericho pretty much said, "Hey, like, you don't have our help anymore," and stuff. You know, it'll be interesting to see what happens on Dynamite. I mean, I think that's an interesting storyline. I think Daniel Garcia, of the young guys they're trying to push, I think is one of the guys with the most potential on the roster. I'd much rather. I could see him main eventing shows. I couldn't see, like, Orange Cassidy main eventing shows. Yeah, I mean, I like Daniel Garcia. It'll be interesting. I mean, Bryan and Jericho absolutely tore the house down. I thought it was a tremendous match between two of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And I think if Dave... I mean, who cares what Dave Meltzer gives? But if he doesn't give a 5-star review, I think that's absolutely insane. Darby Allin, Sting, and Miro defeated House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. A lot of speculation that Malachi Black could be done with the company. He bowed out and kind of bid the audience a bit of a farewell last night, and that has led increasingly to speculation that he's gone from the company, or maybe that he's taking an extended leave of absence. Reports are that his mental health isn't doing so well, and that he would really like to focus on himself, which I completely understand. So if that is what he needs to do, I hope he takes the time off. I think that this match was kind of I mean, it's cool to see Sting out there and doing his thing. I mean, that's always awesome. But I don't know. I just think it was kind of unnecessary. Like, I'd rather have Darby Allin versus Miro, to be honest with you, and just leave House of Black off the card. And I guess that's a disservice to Brody King and Buddy Matthews, and I guess they did want to have a farewell for Malachi Black. Another thing, man, there's so many questions coming out of the show. It's absolutely crazy. Main event, CM Punk defeated Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. And I'm not going to lie, I was very nervous. Whenever CM Punk does anything, extremely nervous. Said that before, is what it is. And he was getting his butt kicked all over that ring. He was bleeding everywhere. But at the end of the day, CM Punk hits a couple of GTSs, and you have a new AEW World Champion. Like I said, his name is CM Punk. I'm wearing a shirt. He's right there. There, not Jim Ross. Dude, my finger doesn't work right now. Right there. The podcast. It's great for the podcast listeners. But he beats him, and I thought it was a really good match. I totally thought Punk was going to lose at some point, and then I was like, well, maybe they're just, like, done with it. Maybe they're just going to bury CM Punk for all this reports of what he would eventually get into during the media scrum. And then he wins, and then the arena goes black. CM Punk ROH clip is shown, and MJF comes out. He reveals himself as the Joker. It wasn't Adam Cole. It was just that was a bit of a joke by me because I'm so funny. But MJF is the Joker, and it looks like he's probably part of this Stokely Hathaway group, which I think is cool, man. I like it. I like the idea of Big Cass playing the muscle for MJF too, especially after MJF used the services of W. Morrissey to try and defeat Wardlow. He was unsuccessful, but, nice big muscle behind him. And I kind of thought that MJF was going to cash in, like Edge or CM Punk. And I thought he was kind of just going to... I'm not even kidding. I totally thought he was going to break the rules and, hey, we're having a match right now. I'm pinning you. We have a new AEW World Champion. That would have been crazy. I did not want that to happen because I'm a huge CM Punk guy, but, I mean... The wrestling world is talking right now, but they could be talking a lot about MJF, one of the youngest rising wrestlers in the company. Instead, they're talking about CM Punk, and I love Punk, but I can get why people aren't the happiest about that. But yeah, that was all out. But what's getting people talking more than all out is the media scrum that happened afterwards. Probably viewed by more people too, because All Out was on pay-per-view. This was available free on YouTube. The audio was super weird, and I'm gonna totally butcher the pronunciation of her name, and please come at me. Denise Slizado. I was watching her feed actually, and that was pretty good. And I was trying to get the go through notes for this, and I was watching hers, and that was actually pretty good because the one that AEW posted, I swear to God, everybody sounded like a robot. I started getting self conscious about my voice because I'm like, dude, does Tony Khan have a deeper voice than me? There's no shot. So weird though. And CM Punk pretty much went on and he started talking about Scott Colton, aka Colt Cabana, saying that, well, first off, I'm gonna be totally honest here. Who is Nick? Nick asked it, or he started going after Nick for taking improv with Colt Cabana years ago, and he said, hey, are you friends with Colt Cabana? And he said, this Nick guy said, no, I'm not. And Punk said, well, good, neither am I haven't talked to him either in years. And Punk just kind of went off about Colt Cabana, and he started going off about Adam Page and saying, I'm not going to say it because that's some pretty harsh language for the former world champion, but pretty much said that he didn't know anything, he should listen to his elders. When I was coming up and there were elder wrestlers like Terry Funk in the locker room, I sat up and I listened to them, but these guys aren't doing that. He went after MJF too. He said that, this I will say, he said that he's tired of working these pricks, and he was referring to Adam Page and MJF. And he was going after these guys in Reseda. It's pretty much like every Jim Cornette complaint about AEW, CM Punk was voicing it. But the difference is, Jim Cornette is a guy who is a legendary wrestling promoter, manager. I would even say at this point, sure, podcaster, throw that in there, but he is a podcaster. CM Punk is the AEW World Champion, and he said comments like, I don't care how it was in Reseda, it's different out here now, and it is different, and I do agree with him on that point. But man, what a just going after these guys, and especially Adam Page. I would be so fired up right now if I was Adam Page. But, I mean, part of it's right, though. If these guys aren't listening to the advice from their elders and from the veterans, I mean, I get CM Punk's frustrations. I totally understand that. When you have guys like CM Punk himself, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, a plethora of guys who have been on top in both companies, listen to them. And CM Punk made a very interesting comment about MJF. And he pretty much said that MJF, he craps where he eats too much, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And instead of thinking about how green that grass is on the other side, why don't you just water what you have in front of it, let the sun come down on it, and then you'll start shining. Your grass will start shining. But it appears like MJF does not want to do that. I mean, it's so interesting, man, like all of this stuff. I mean, you had, like I said, you had Tony Storm going after Thunder Rosa a little bit. They're fired up wrestlers, man. Like Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, they were super fired up. I love hearing Chris Jericho talk. He just seems like the conscience of the locker room. Just at the end, he's just, talking about, hey, there's stuff that I disagree with. He said he echoed some of the points that CM Punk made. He just did it in a much more professional and clean way. And you can say what you want. I mean, it was unprofessional though. He did go off. I love him, but he went off, and I mean, it's interesting. Some people are thinking that it might be a work. I think that would be awesome if it is. I don't think it is, though. That felt like real, raw emotion. And CM Punk going after these wrestling journalists, especially, that he's had to deal with for the past 20 years. And all of the rumors, and all of the innuendo, and all of the stuff that isn't true, and all of the stuff that is true that he doesn't want to get out there. I completely understand why he snapped. Which is why I'm not a wrestling journalist. I'm just a guy that talks about wrestling. Which is why I can say that CM Punk is the man. Solo Sikoa debuted, like I said, saved his cousin Roman Reigns from losing the WWE Unified World Championship. I think that people thought that it was going to be a bit for Sikoa. It makes sense for him to come up. Like I said, what does this mean for Sami Zayn? What does this mean for Roman Reigns? I like the potential of Sikoa. It makes sense. I mean, I'm a big stable guy. And stable, not Sable, but I am a big stable guy too. Don't let Brock Lesnar hear that though. But I am a big stable guy, and kind of feels like the bloodline is complete. You got the guys that can go after the tag team titles. You got the guy that can go after the world title, and then you also have the guy that can go after the US/IC/ take care of business when Roman Reigns isn't here guy in Solo Sikoa. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Sikoa. Next up, Braun Strowman is returning tonight. That's the big rumors, and I was reading something before I started recording, and apparently there's a setup where maybe a car gets flipped, and that's some Braun Strowman stuff. I mean, Braun Strowman is like a literal living Hulk, and flipping cars, that's some Hulk stuff, that's some Braun stuff, so it totally makes sense for him to do that. I think Braun Strowman is a guy who is he adds. You want to talk about credibility? I mean, he's a big butt kicker, right? I like Braun Strowman. I think he had a connection with the crowd, and then they turned him heel, and they turned him face, and they did flip-flopped him so much, and he completely ruined his character. I think that, who knows, maybe Braun's the guy that ends Roman's reign. Roman's reign. But maybe Braun is that guy. It'll be interesting to see what he does, though. The landscape has changed a little bit since he was released. And, again, it'll be interesting. One thing that I really want to I'll talk about this in a second, because I really want to talk about that. So I'll talk about my next point, because I'd like to close the show off with my next point. Or with my final point. But Bray Wyatt reportedly has an offer from an upstart wrestling company. The rumor is that it's a Freddie Prinze company. Fightful Select had it. I don't think that's like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's the most groundbreaking. It's like, yeah, no, of course he does. He probably has a few offers out there from various different companies. I mean, you know what? Actually, here, I'll make an offer out to you right now, Bray. I'll give you, I don't know, $100 a week to come in and blog for me a couple times a week. How's that sound? I mean, that's better than that's probably better than the offer that Freddie Prinze gave you. But yeah, I mean, that's a thing. I mean, apparently Freddie Prinze is starting a wrestling company. And it kind of reminds me of, like Michael Scott Paper Company in The Office. It'd be like if Andy Bernard left, and I know it'd be like, it'd be like Ryan. It'd be like if Ryan, after he left the Michael Scott Paper Company, he went to like 5 different other startup paper companies. But it's just these wrestlers where it's like, well, WWE didn't treat me right. Well, I'm going to go to AEW, and AEW didn't use me right. Well, I'm going to go to this other guy who might use me right. It just is, it's like, maybe the problem's with you. You ever think about that? But I think if Freddie Prinze Jr. does come up with a wrestling company, he should have the money behind it. It'll be interesting to see the kind of names that he can get. I mean, one of the big names that he could have gotten is no longer available, and that's Karrion Kross. And Braun is another guy that also was no longer available, according to reports at least. But the big thing that I want to get into, and this is, man, I just want to say that I appreciate what Tony Khan has done. The fact that we have a number 2 wrestling company, and it's fine that we don't have 2 number 1s. The fact that we have a number 1 and a number 2, which we've sorely been lacking for years, to actually have like a number 2 where guys can go and get paid and wrestle and hone their craft. I don't think that AEW necessarily needs to be number 1, but I think that Tony Khan coming out and making comments saying that, well, this is our weekend, and WWE ran it, and they knew exactly what they were doing. Who cares? When Triple H talks about AEW in the media, he's very dismissive of them. He said that, yeah, they beat our developmental. Okay, who cares? Even if it's true or not, he said that. And Tony Khan instead goes out and he calls out, he said, this is our weekend, and it really, and I'm not going to be messed around with and stuff like that, and I just think that was very unprofessional. You would never catch Vince McMahon or Triple H or Stephanie McMahon or Nick Khan or Bruce Pritchard doing what Tony Khan did. And I think allowing his wrestlers to speak that candidly, that's another thing, that these guys are dropping F-bombs like they are nothing. And if I'm a sponsor, I'm probably not the happiest with that. And Jericho kind of addressed that people need to clean it up a little bit. I mean, this is a televised product. Clean up your act a little bit. You're getting paid to be here. It's not like you're on a volunteer basis. Things could be a lot worse than they are. Jericho teased another TV deal, and Tony Khan was kind of like, dude, shut up. Like, the ink has not been signed on that. Like, ease up a little bit. Tony Khan needs to tighten up the ship a lot, and he really does need to get his wrestlers to stop making comments in the media about WWE, and he also needs to stop making comments about WWE. You don't see Roman Reigns, you don't see Seth Rollins, you don't see Matt Riddle saying, hey, things are really done great in AEW, but you do hear guys saying, hey, there's a lot of excitement, and guys in AEW saying, hey, there's a lot of excitement over in WWE with Triple H taking over now. Stop. Guys, there's veterans in the locker room that should be, and listen to the veterans, I keep saying this, listen to Jericho, listen to a Goldust, man. These guys have valuable pieces of advice, and they have, like I said, they've been on top, they've made a ton of money here. listen to them, and Tony, stop making comments about WWE in the media, please. The fact that it just sounds, I think it sounds extremely unprofessional for him to go out there and say, "Hey, well, this is our weekend," and the fact that WWE came in and he used some expletives, I don't think it's the greatest look for Tony Khan as a wrestling promoter. I just think it, again, when you compare to WWE, and WWE is such a machine at this point, for Tony Khan to be, I just not about it. I would love for him to tighten it up a little bit and for him to clean it up and just, man, because AEW, and JR said this last night, there is something special there. There is something there. The fact that they can sell out arenas on rumors, the fact that they can sell at arenas like that, the fact that the ticket resale market for their Toronto show is absolutely insane, and to the point where I'm not even consider going because it's just absolutely ridiculous. AEW has something special, and they have the talent, they have CM Punk, and they have Bryan Danielson, and they have future stars like Adam Page and MJF, and I sincerely hope that everybody can get on the same page and at least try to act like one big happy family, because again, there's something special there, and wrestling's so much better when there's two companies as opposed to one. We saw it when it was one company and it got boring, it got stale, and I think WWE is getting a little bit better because they want to kick AEW's butts. That's my opinion. The fact that Triple H is doing everything right now, and Triple H probably was offended by some of the comments, and I'm sure Cody Rhodes told him what they thought about him, and it's no secret that Triple H doesn't like their world champion. So, again, just provides more fuel to the fire. This is the Superkick podcast. Thank you all for watching, listening, all that good stuff, and I'm going to get more consistent on this, I promise you, now that I have my setup, now that I have everything going, and I'm going to be posting this everywhere, man. Thank you.